Good evening, everyone. As always, I am delighted and excited to be here this evening. I always get a kick out of listening to the promos that go on before we go on air. It's here about England's phone number and Australia's phone number. And I just love the fact that we are everywhere. I mean, how cool is that? Modern technology, when it works, it's phenomenal. When it doesn't, not so much. I found it interesting the other day. I had gotten a survey about cars, specifically about not Tesla, but electric cars and what that would mean. And it's really funny because they were asking what would happen if you had that vehicle? What would be your thoughts on it? And it's funny because my intuition always goes to, well, if electric goes out, then there's a problem with the car. I mean, really think about this. It's an all electric car, and not all of them, obviously. Some of them are gasoline and electric, which I think really is a better choice. But if our electric grid goes down, then what? You can't recharge your car unless, of course, you have some sort of, I guess, solar powered thing that you can connect to and make it work for you. But I'm going to say, generally speaking, the idea of electric car is great. Tesla has some very unique models. And if you're wondering why am I starting off the show like this tonight, it's because really and truly we have to listen to our own intuition. So for instance, if you're going to make a purchase and something says just doesn't feel right, even though everything looks beautiful on the outside, even though you've got money in your pocket, even though you're ready to make a purchase, you have that little bit of intuition that's going, something's not right. It's very important to pay attention to. I can't tell you how many folks have said, oh, I thought that, or I felt that, or, I kind of had just an inkling that I shouldn't do that or I should do that. So I find it so fascinating when we have this wonderful inner guidance with us and we don't pay attention. That said, we have a caller on the line. Cookie from Massachusetts. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to see if I can, pardon me, turn up the volume a little bit here. Something's a little cockamamie. Let's try that again. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. That's much better. You were kind of off in a tunnel somewhere. It makes it a little difficult to talk that way. Okay. Did you have a particular question you wanted to address, or would you just like me to share whatever comes up for you? What would you
You
prefer?
can share whatever comes up, but I was curious on, I got 3 sons. I was wondering how they're doing.
Okay. It's funny because I have to make a comment here. It says you're from Massachusetts, but it doesn't feel like you're from Massachusetts. You're not born and raised there, are you?
Yeah, I am.
That's
I don't have
wild.
my Boston accent.
Now, it's funny because I actually have family in that area, so I'm familiar with the accent. But so I'm wondering, and bear with me just one second here, because occasionally I hear something different than what I'm hearing. I know this sounds weird, but it's kind of like when you have a dream and you wake up and you think you're still in the dream. That
Mm-hmm.
said, I actually get a pull towards outside of the country. So this has to be connected, and I will get to your son. So bear with me one moment. This has to do with past life more than it does with present. Because when you spoke, I was in, again, a totally different place here. So I find this kind of fun. I'm just going to say, I feel as if you've had some affinities towards other things that aren't necessarily connected to your upbringing. So, an example would be if, let's say, you loved Italian food, but you were raised in a Native American household. They don't really jive, and yet you
Uh-huh.
might find you're drawn to that other culture. And I feel like there's two in particular that are very strong with you. And I feel like, again, this is why what I heard was not what I actually heard. Okay. Anyways, what I wanted to suggest, sorry, and then I'll get back on track. What I wanted to suggest is maybe research a little bit. If you haven't done one of those family tree things on, I know there's a couple of different sites that give you your genetic background. Maybe do a little
Hmm.
research. I feel like there's something there that would make you smile, something there that you're very connected to that you might not be fully aware of.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that said, now let's focus on the kids. Okay, so I don't get babies, like I don't get an infant and a 1 year old and a 2 year old. I feel like your children are a bit older. I feel like your youngest sometimes can be a cut up, as in like funny, not intentionally, but just is. I also feel like your youngest embodies a lot of emotion. Some people, they're just indifferent. That's not this kid. This kid has big heart, feels things deeply. If your youngest gets hurt, that kind of stays with them. Uh, Different from, I feel like your eldest, who can honestly brush things off when necessary. Not that there's not also a big heart, but handles things differently. And then your middle child, there is an irony here because I feel like your middle child is very different from the rest of the family, and moods change a lot with your middle child. Now, as far as how are they doing in respect to life and achievement, and I'm going to say overall wellness, I'm going to go to your eldest first. And the feeling with your eldest is very bright, very capable, very much a go getter at times. And at other times, it's really funny. It's kind of like, nope, I'm just going to sit back and relax and not do anything. But the skill set, the capability is very strong with your eldest child. There is I'll say a profound knowledge base that's just innate. It's not because of studying, but it's actually a natural gift there. It's like knowing more than they should have known even when they were real little. There's a couple of gifts there that are very predominant. And your
Would
eldest
like to
is,
go, yeah,
I'm
the
sorry, say that
eldest
again?
is would my eldest would like to go for his master's in his trade, and he's afraid to do it. He said, I don't know if I can pass it. I said, yeah, you can.
Oh my gosh. He's not recognizing his gifts. I mean, really and truly, for him to
Hmm.
do this, it just simply means he needs to make up his mind. All kidding aside, and if you want to share with him, you can say the weird psychic online or on air said that
Yeah.
he's really very gifted and very smart because he is. I feel like what keeps him from at this moment, 'cause I still get massive success for him at this moment, what keeps him back a little is just confidence not being 100%, but it has nothing to do with his intellect and nothing to do with his ability. All he has to do is study content and he will pass. He will get
Mhm.
his master's. And I feel like he'll go on from there, but it's a little later down the line, meaning I don't get him getting the master's and then immediately following up with a next degree. To me, it feels as if he gets the master's and maybe it's 2 years, 3 years down the line, then he decides he wants more education. But there is definitely expansion, growth, and again, the ability to really do whatever he wants to do. What you might want to
So
do with him, I'm sorry, go on.
you definitely see him passing his master's.
I do. I do.
Okay.
What I'd like to suggest, if you would share with him, is before he goes in to do any of his tests, to sit down for a moment and envision himself doing with the test with ease. Like in his own mind, see himself doing the test and going, oh, yeah, I know that. Oh, like getting himself comfortable. I guess football players and people in sports think of themselves as hype, getting hyped up, like they get ready for it. They're confident. But if you tell your son to be
Hmm.
confident, that doesn't really do the trick. He needs to connect with how he feels, how he sees it. And I'm going to go back to what I said a moment ago, because he can be right on target and just do things immediately. And then he's got that opposite side that just like, nope, I'm just going to sit back. Now's not to be that person who just sits back. Now's the time for him to really and truly focus his attention on what does it look like when he is in the midst of taking a test and he feels assured that he's got the right answers? What does it look like and feel like when he's sitting there and it's like a light bulb goes on in his head and he has the answers? Because again, I strongly feel like he passes. The only way that he could fail is if he stops himself. And what I mean by that is if he's in the midst of taking the test and he stops and he starts to analyze and he starts to get himself worked up, that is really the only way that he could fail.
Okay.
Okay. So again, if you can get
Makes
him to
sense.
do a little, I'm sorry, one more time.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yep,
Good.
that definitely makes sense.
And, again, if you can just truly suggest to him that he sits down and he thinks about what it feels like if he envisions it happening, you might even want to ask him about when's the last time he did something that he was a little nervous about, but he did it and it happened. Doesn't matter if he was 5 years old or 15 years old or 20 years, whatever the age is, doesn't matter. But for him to connect with that energy of success. Like I said, the
Mhm.
only way that he can fail is if he gets himself overwhelmed while he's doing it.
Okay. I will definitely tell him that.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, as far as let's go to the youngest. It's funny. I keep going from younger to older, older to younger, and then we're going to get back to your middle child. So when it goes to your youngest, that's good English. Your youngest. Again, I get like he's very funny a lot of times. I feel like there's just that inner gift of humor, which I also feel is a failsafe sometimes when there's discomfort or anger. It's like pulling back on humor, which is a good thing. By the same token, for him, it's important that he starts recognizing that it's okay to genuinely share how he feels in comfortable ways. And what I mean by that is I almost get the sense that he doesn't reveal 100% of what's going on with him for fear of not being seen in the way that he wants to be seen. And yet he's such a nice soul. I mean, truly, he's a nice soul. He's got to get out of his own way as far as having any sort of concern about how other people see him, because it really doesn't matter. He really is a good soul. And he also will be successful, but it'll be a little different. I feel like with him, he dabbles in one thing and then it's like, oh, I changed my mind. And then he goes into a different direction. So I get them being stepping stones and there shouldn't be worry
Mhm.
attached to it. And so an example would be, for instance, let's say somebody goes to school for accounting and then they graduate and they go, oh, I think I want to be a lawyer. And you're like, well, wait, if you just finished accounting, what do you mean? He's going to put
Yeah.
his hand in different things. And that's okay. Because again, they're stepping stones. And ultimately, he ends up in the right place. I just feel like his, I'll say, process is a bit slower than your elder. But he
It's
also
what?
will do it's a little slower than your eldest, meaning like your eldest could go and just as long as he's not feeling overwhelmed, can go boom, 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 make things happen. Your youngest takes a little longer to make things happen because he's got to check this out and he's got to check that out and he's got to experience this and touch that. Again, I get the word
He's
dabble.
looking. He's looking to grow in his job. He's hoping that he gets this other job. You see him changing positions in his job.
I do, but I don't get it in the way that he thinks. Because again, I'm getting dabbling in different areas. So here too, I'll give an analogy. It would be as if he just wants to grow to the next step. And what they might offer him is something a bit more complex. So I just get it being different
Okay.
than what he expects. And again, his growth is a little slower than your elder, but he
Right.
is
But
also
he has
going
to
to
be
be
comfortable in what he gets
right,
because he's
right.
not sure of himself.
It's even bigger than not sure. It's again, he wants to be seen in a certain light. So he needs, I'll rephrase this. He needs to be seen as competent. He needs to feel as if the people around him are understanding that he is worthy, and I am going to use the word worthy, worthy of what he's doing. Very important to him. With him, he just
Yeah.
needs to allow himself to feel.
Do you think that will happen in this job?
I do. And again, it's just a matter of happening in a different way. So if he's, let's say, headed towards position A, he ends up getting position B or C. And again, it feels to me as if
Okay.
it's a little bit more complex than he expects, but I do feel like he'll do well.
Okay.
Now, let's go to your middle child because I see we have somebody else on the line here. As far as your middle child, I just feel like this is somebody I just want to put my arms around and give him a big hug. uh, again, another another nice soul, but I find it interesting that all three children have a hard time recognizing who they really are. All three of them are really strong, capable, bright beings on this planet, and yet they're not seeing themselves as they are. All three of them will grow into that, but it's going to be later down the line. Your middle child, though, I feel like is all about relationships. He is all about connection. And I get
Hmm.
we're in July. Yes. Okay. July, August, September, October, November, December. So I'd say within the next 5 months, I get a lot of change with him on an emotional level. Anything having to do with relationships, that's changing. Once he moves beyond December, life gets easier. So you may want to pass that
Do
on
you
because I'm
see?
getting
Do you do you see him moving?
my overall impression with his move is it's what really will make his heart happy. But I feel like he hesitates at times because, again, connection with people that he cares about. He's ambiguous about making a major change and letting go of people. Please share with him that there is no wrong move for him. And again, once he moves beyond this 5 month period, there's like this light that shows up for him. All right, my friend,
Okay. All
I
right.
thank you so much for calling. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. And I know we have another lady on the line, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the name Angela. Okay, from Arkansas. Very cool. Hi, Angela. How
Yes,
are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Nice to connect. I've been looking at Arkansas. There's all sorts of amazing things there. A friend of mine just said, "Oh my gosh, have you ever seen the area?" And I haven't. So you live in a special place, from what I gather. There's supposed to be an energy
Yes,
vortex in Arkansas, which is very
yes.
cool. Did
They
you
call
have a
it the
specific,
natural state, so yes.
they call it the natural state, did you say?
Uh huh.
Okay. Because I just noticed some photos and again, energetic grid, which is great. So that being in a place like that, it means that you can manifest quicker. It means that if you are stressed, you can go outside and create peace faster. It's as if the planet itself in that area supports you more. So again, very cool.
Uh huh.
And did you have a specific question that you wanted to address?
I would probably say, do you see anything in the near future, or are there any messages? Just, I mean, I
Okay.
guess maybe, or is there anything coming up? I don't know. Do you see anything?
All
I'm kind
right.
of at a
So
crossroads, I guess.
I was just going to say, when, it's funny when you said, are you seeing anything? I feel like when it comes to moving forward in your world, things are going to do a whole 360. It's as if the universe at large is going, it's time. Let's do this. And it's so funny to me because I keep getting this sense of combination of being a wild child and being a traditionalist at the same time, which is kind of hard to do. But that tells me that you have a very
Right.
creative spirit. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what were you saying?
I said, yeah, you're right.
Okay. So that part of you that is the wild child, that creative spirit wants to go and explore and do. But then there's that part of you that again is more traditional and is more pragmatic. what I'd like to suggest, for the moment at least, is tell that pragmatic part of yourself to be quiet. Sit down for just a moment and be quiet and start
Yeah.
tapping into that explorer part of yourself. Because we're in July, yes, August, September. I'm going to say September, October starts a new cycle for you. And it's going to run all the way through till, I'm going to say, June of next year. So think from end of summer going into fall, all the way to beginning of June next year, where it's going to basically be magic time for you. If you get out of your
Oh,
head and you
cool.
don't yeah, if you don't over analyze, you will find that all sorts of wonderful things just start popping up. So to me, it's kind of as if you open an envelope and somebody, and you haven't seen for forever, they sent you a nice card, but in there is a check because they were thinking about you and they had some extra money and they thought maybe you'd like to have it. Or you go to walk outside and the neighbor comes over and says, "Oh, listen, I've got the guy doing my yard. I'd like to do yours for you too if you want." Just serendipitous, happy, nice pleasantries
Yeah.
taking place in your world. And I feel like when I get major confirmation on that, so that's good. I get the sense that, again, this period that you're going into really has to do with sweetness in your life. And that means you should dive in there and just go and do. And I'm not saying don't take care of what you have to. We all have certain responsibilities that we have to look after and take care of.
Right.
But the overall impression is, if your gut says at 11:30 at night, go to the grocery store, and you think, well, that's silly. Why would I go to the grocery store at 11:30 at night? Go anyways. Because if you do, you'll either find something that you've been looking for that they didn't have, and all of a sudden they brought it back, and there was only two of them that you could get. Or it could be you're going to
Right.
meet somebody who is just an amazing person that you will welcome into your life. But I just get, again, this period of time here as being stupendous for magic to happen. The other thing about this time period is you working on forgiving you a little bit. I feel like you hold old wounds, old injuries, for lack of a better way to say it, a little too much. It's like if you think back, you can bring up all the feelings that are attached. And I feel like at this moment, it's really good for you to work on letting go of, whether they were intentional or not, other people
Yeah.
causing you. Because I get the sense that a minute amount was intentional. The rest was unintentional and yet still had a big impact on your heart.
Right.
But this is the time to start saying, I'm going to let go and let God. I'm going to just take a deep breath and release all of this so that I can take my good because it's my turn. And the other thing here is to really focus on, you give value to other people. You do good for other people. You need to start seeing that you're entitled to have the same. And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, you never have any good in your world. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, you habitually over the years have given out a lot more than you've accepted. It's time to
Right.
start
Yeah. No,
accepting.
I've said the same thing. I've exactly said that.
Okay. So then if you're in agreement and if you're comfortable with what I'm about to say, I would light a white candle. And as I light the white candle, I would just focus on the fact that I'm connected to the divine. And because of that, I do good in this world and I'm open to receiving good in this world. And just make sure the candle burns all the way down. And every time you walk by it, kind of think that same thing. I'm connected to the divine. I'm connected to God in the universe. And I do good in this world. And I'm now open to receiving my good in this world. I feel like it will expedite your results, but also it will make it easier for you to let go of those previous hurts. And things connected with women in your world, and it feels like specifically mom, there feels like something that's old that's been sitting there. It's definitely time to say, it's okay. I'm going to just release it. You are not the same as she, and vice versa. And I know you know that intellectually, and yet I get this I'll call it a pulse, an energy, a frequency around you that kind of interferes at times with your ability to care more for you. You know the old saying about we can't love
Right.
anybody else, we love ourselves?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay. That's where I'm coming from with this. So recognize that you really have to be okay with you so that all the good that I am
Hmm.
feeling right on the precipice here is going to come to you and you actually accept it. Because you can have something beautiful and lovely in front of you and say no thank you. it's
Hmm.
it's it's no longer time for that. It really is time to start saying it's okay. I deserve it. I'm entitled. I'm allowed. And just start saying thank you. And maybe even in your head, when the good starts to come, say thanks, one more please. Or I'm good with this. I'll take another. Something that you can joke about in your own head, but that lets you
Yeah.
see that you're open to having more.
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
part here too is it's so funny to me how
Yeah.
many people into this
Well, here,
learn how
I
to
want to tell you a kind of a funny story really quick. That's not.
sure.
It's not funny at all, but it's a really good point.
Okay.
I have an eye disease, and I'm in the process of losing my vision. But I wouldn't
Gotcha.
trade it for the world because I tell people that Amazing Grace, the story has totally changed my meaning of that story because
Yeah.
I used to think, oh, I can get my vision back. I can, the blind can see. But now I see totally differently. I don't see with my eyes. I see with my heart. I don't judge with my eyes. Does
That's
that make
it.
sense?
Oh my gosh, yes. It makes so much sense. But this
And
is why I'm
it's almost like it's different. I can get a vibration like from my hands because I feel differently. I feel it's different how you feel. You don't feel with your hands. It's almost like you feel the energy
right. And so that brings
when
me
you
full
can't see.
circle to what I said before, which is loving you and being in that space
Hmm.
of gratitude for yourself, because the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You're on the right
No,
path.
I
You're
agree
on
with
the
you
right.
totally.
I'm sorry, say that one more time, hon.
I said I agree with you totally.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling in. And I know you have beautiful things coming. Be open to it. Okay?
Thank you. You just
Right.
confirmed me and made me feel a lot better.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I love when that happens. Confirmation's good. I thank you. Have a
Oh,
wonderful week.
absolutely. So, thank
Okay,
you
bye-bye.
so much too, and you have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. If you'd like to reach me, feel free to go to my website, HalleyElise.com. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or all the lovely different social media that there is out there. And of course on A1R Radio, right? Okay, folks, I'm so glad that you tuned in this evening. I will have a guest on the first week in August, somebody that's been on before. I'm sure you'll enjoy him again. And then next week, we'll have more readings. So once again, thank you.